Welcome to the Popcorn Talk Network, for the online broadcast network that features movie discussion, news, and interviews. Press 1.
Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
From the Popcorn Talk Network, the online broadcast network for movie talk, Alicia Malone with Scott Movie Mance and the Schmoes Know. This is Profiles, in-depth spotlights on the greatest filmmakers and artists in motion picture history.
Hello, Schmoville! Welcome to episode 23 of Profiles. Woo! We're back from Sundance.
Yes.
Woo! What a time. 20 movies
exhausting.
Each.
I know.
And we still had time to do our research and our homework for our profiles. This one was really, really worth it. Mm-hmm. We are spotlighting the one and only two-time Academy Award winner, Tom Hanks.
And we have a very special guest in the studio.
Yes, we do right here.
Wilson!
Wilson is here with us. He made it off the island.
Don't go away, Wilson. Stay right here.
We love Wilson. We don't want to break down and make our profilers cry just like Tom Hanks did in that movie. But don't worry, profilers. We actually do have a real special guest later in the show.
So exciting.
Joining us right now for moral support is Wilson the volleyball. Wilson! So, okay, Alicia. Now, I know we say this every week.
Yeah.
When it comes to doing our Fast Five, picking our favorite movies.
Oh, this was hard.
This was, without question, the hardest.
It was really hard because Tom Hanks has done so many movies over his career. He's had an incredible career when you look at it all. His films have grossed over $8.4 billion. As you said, he's a two-time Oscar winner. He's also been nominated 5 times.
Yep.
And it's kind of funny that the movies we chose were actually the ones he was nominated for.
But we didn't know that at the time.
No, we just picked our favorites.
We picked our favorites. We gave it a lot of thought. And then going through and rewatching the movies, I went, wait a minute. All the movies in our top 5, our Fast 5, are the ones that he was either nominated or won Academy Awards
that's
for.
A little clue for you if you're trying to figure out our Fast 5.
A little clue for you all. But what is it, really? Because when you look at other big Hollywood stars, A-listers, I mean, even Tom Cruise has had his star fade a little. But Tom Hanks is still one of the brightest shining stars, like Julia Roberts, Denzel Washington, Leonardo DiCaprio. What is it about Tom Hanks?
He's just continued. He's managed to do every single genre. I think he's so believable. Yeah. He has this great everyman quality, this boy next door thing. He gets likened a lot to Jimmy Stewart, which I can definitely see the comparisons to.
Yep.
And Spielberg said about him, when audiences saw him in Splash, they wanted to adopt him. The women wanted their daughters to marry him, and the families wanted him to come home and have supper with them. So I feel like you know him, or at least you feel like you know him, but he's actually a pretty private person. You don't know too much about his life. He hasn't got any, DUIs or any arrests or any tabloids.
And that's good. He's always been smart. He's always been smart that way. He's kept his private life private, and that's the way, honestly, it should be. It should be just about the art, about the movies. But it's just like what you said about wanting to invite him home for dinner because he's so relatable, he's accessible, he's likable. Even when he plays not a nice person, like in Road to Perdition, you still liked him and you rooted for him. He often plays conflicted, ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances, and he's gained and lost weight repeatedly for his most substantial roles.
And he's so famous, but you still believe him in every role.
Right. You don't.
I think that's.
It's like sometimes you feel like you're just watching an actor.
Yeah.
But that not with Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
You still lose yourself in the performance,
even
in
though
the character.
He loses weight, but he doesn't transform in the way that someone like Daniel Day-Lewis does.
Yeah.
But he's still really believable.
Well, I too have a Spielberg quote.
Oh, good.
About Tom Hanks. And they're actually making their 4th feature film together. It's a Cold War thriller that's due out at the end of the year.
Yes.
Of course, they also were collaborators on TV's HBO's Band of Brothers and The Pacific. They're doing a 3rd World War II miniseries. Spielberg says that very few actors have that gift where the communication between the actor and the audience is only as far away as the sound of their voice. Tom Hanks has that gift. Spencer Tracy had it. Henry Fonda had it. And yes, Jimmy Stewart had it.
It's pretty amazing that Tom Hanks, he's an actor, he's a director, he's a producer, and he's a writer. He's coming out with some fiction soon, and he even has an app.
He has an app.
A typewriting app.
Tom Hanks has a type. What's the app?
It's called like Hanks something or other, but it simulates a typewriter because he loves typewriters and he's a collector.
Oh, he collects all typewriters?
Yeah, so he wanted to make an app for your phone that is like a typewriter.
Well, just things that make you go, if you take his first initial and his last name, it's Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, thanks, Hanks.
Thanks, Hanks.
Well, thanks to his incredible career, he has had a wonderful life.
He has.
Cue It's a Wonderful Life for Tom Hanks
With
right
Pippa.
now.
Thomas Jeffrey Hanks was born on July 9, 1956 in Concord, California. After his parents' divorce in 1960, Hanks went with his father and later studied theater at Chabot College in Hayward, California, and Cal State University in Sacramento. In 1979, Hanks moved to New York City, where he made his feature film debut in the low-budget slasher flick He Knows You're Alone. The following year, he got his big break, landing the co-lead role as the cross-dressing Kip Wilson on ABC TV's hit comedy Bosom Buddies. It was Bosom Buddies and a guest appearance on TV's Happy Days that prompted director Ron Howard to cast Hanks in Splash, the 1984 box office hit that was followed that same year by the raunchy sex comedy Bachelor Party. After 1988's Big solidified Hanks as an A-list box office star and earned him his first Academy Award nomination, he took his career to a more prestigious level in the early 90s and became only the second actor to win back-to-back Best Actor Oscars for Philadelphia and Forrest Gump. As of 2014, Hanks's movies have grossed more than $8.4 billion worldwide, making him the biggest box office star of all time.
I forgot to put music under that when I edited it last night. So apologies. And thanks to people who are watching live on YouTube right now who reminded me that it's called Hanks Writer, the app.
Oh, okay. There you go. Hanks Writer. I'm going to do that.
Hanks with an X.
Okay, I'm going to do that on my iPhone as soon as I'm done with this show.
Yes.
And as far as the no music, it's like the middle part of Castaway. That was a special middle part of Castaway.
That's what I meant to do.
She meant to do that.
Yeah, it wasn't just that I was really tired and I forgot. No, I meant to do that.
She meant to do that, like Robert Zemeckis and our friend Wilson here, our special guest Wilson.
Very powerful.
Joining us in studio for our special Tom Hanks profiles. Well, I'm going to guess that your first blood for Tom Hanks is different from mine.
Because of our age difference?
Because of our age difference, yes.
Probably. My first blood was Big.
Big. Now, did you watch it in theaters or did you watch it on VHS?
VHS with my friends, and that's the first time I remember Tom Hanks. I remember seeing him and just the childlike quality he had, and I was quite young at the time, so I felt like I could relate to him, and I really wanted to play in that apartment.
Oh, yeah. That's a great apartment with the trampoline and the video games.
Awesome.
What kid wouldn't want to stay in that apartment or play in that apartment?
What was your first blood?
My first blood, well, technically my first blood was Bosom Buddies.
Oh, the TV show. I never saw that.
It is hilarious. It holds up so well. Like if it's on late night on like TV Land or something,
Funny?
I'll watch it.
Okay, I'm going to check it out.
And, you know, that was how I was introduced to Kip and Henry. And I thought Hanks was hilarious. Although, truth be told, full disclosure, I did have a major crush on Donna Dixon.
Was she the gal in it?
She was the hot girl in the movie in the show, but it was because of that I became a fan. So when Splash came out in 1984, directed by Ron Howard, that was my first blood as far as his feature films.
Yeah, I remember seeing that movie, but it doesn't stand out to me in the way that Big did.
It stood out to me because even though it's been quite a while since I've seen it, I still remember, like, you know, that's the kind of movie like Risky Business that made Tom Cruise a star, but Splash made Tom Hanks a movie star.
Yeah.
It catapulted him into another era, which only went further a few years later when Big came out. Mm-hmm. But did you have any idea? Like, I don't know about you, but watching Bosom Buddies and even Splash and definitely Bachelor Party, I never would have predicted that Tom Hanks would have had the kind of career that he's had. I mean, look at the movies he's made.
It's amazing.
The serious movies, the animated movies. It just is absolutely incredible.
It's incredible, and I know that both you and I have had the chance to speak with him several times over our career, and he's so great. He's one of my favorites to talk to because, again, you feel like you know him, and he's so sweet and funny. I remember I was telling him about how I didn't know what a fist bump was called, so one time live on Australian TV, I said, fist me. To the actor, and they were like,
What?
And then I went bright red when I realized what I said. And he thought that was so funny that at the end of the interview, he was like, fist me. And I was like, that is so cool. He's just in on the joke. You see those great memes of him on Tumblr and Facebook where he's posing with people. And he just seems to have a great time wherever he is.
Well, I've had a number of great experiences with Tom Cruise out in the field.
Tom Hanks.
Tom Hanks as well. But Tom Hanks is a big fan of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes.
It's his favorite movie of all time. In fact, his production company, Clavius Base, is named after the moon crater where they find the monolith in 2001. That's how much of a fan he is. Anyway, back in 2008, he moderated a Q&A with Douglas Trumbull, who did the special effects for 2001. And, talking about special effects can get very, very dry, as I discovered last night during Interstellar. But he was so funny, and he was so lively. So the following year, when I was in Rome for the junket for Angels and Demons, and I'm sitting down, he's getting his mic on, and, he's very polite and nice and everything. And I told him, hey, I saw you do that Q&A last year for 2001: A Space Odyssey. He lit up like the sun. He's like, you were there? How was that? What did you think? And I told him, and I was reciting things that he said in the Q&A. He knew.
He knew you were a fan.
That I was a fan, that I was there. And it was like one of my favorite interviews of all time.
He's the best. And he's got so many great films. So let's get into our Fast Five.
Number five.
I'm sorry, Wilson! Wilson, I'm sorry!
Wilson!
Castaway
came out December 22nd, 2000. Directed by Robert Zemeckis. Cost $90 million to make. Made $430 million worldwide. Nominated for 2 Academy Awards, Best Sound and Best Actor. Tom Hanks. Actually, the last time he was nominated, which is a travesty because he should have been nominated for Captain Phillips.
Oh, he's incredible in Captain Phillips.
He should have been nominated for Saving Mr. Banks as Walt Disney.
Oh, yeah, he's great in that too.
I
like that movie. But Castaway, for an actor to be able to hold his own for so much of the movie when he's just by himself on the island, there's very little dialogue, and he makes you believe in the relationship between him and a volleyball. So much so that when that moment happens, when Wilson bobs away into the sea, I cry every time. Too. I actually feel like it's his friend that he's losing.
Who could pull that off?
Not many people.
Not many.
Because those single actor movies are really, really hard to pull off. I know there's the start and the end that have the other actors involved, but most of it is just him.
It's just him all on the island. The musical score was done by Alan Silvestri, but from the moment he is on the island to the moment that he leaves, there is no score to convey the sense of isolation that he has. This is a one-man show for the most part. It's a tour de force performance. It's a big, brave, bold, beautiful film. It was a risk to do those kind of things for Zemeckis to do those directorial choices.
Yeah, but it was a huge success,
wasn't it? It's a huge success, and it's very, very entertaining. And like you said, the scene where he loses Wilson, who we have here, we found him, is heartbreaking. But there's another scene in the film that when I was watching it the other day, I forgot about it at the time. But watching it again, it really got to me.
What was that?
When he first gets off the island, when he puts up the sail from the porta potty,
yeah.
And he makes it off the island, and he gets past where the waves are breaking to make it off the island. He's getting his act together on the raft, putting things away. He looks back on the island, and he looks back, and he does a double take and just stares at the island for a second, and it hits him like he's like, that was my home.
Yeah.
For 4 years.
That
and
is
then
a powerful moment.
It's a powerful moment because the score kicks back in, and it's a moving score from Silvestri.
It's like that's all he wanted was to get off the island, but then once he's off, it's a huge risk. He doesn't know where he'll end up.
And it's almost like he's like, I'm going to miss you.
He's leaving his safety, and he'll miss it.
And then there's a storm cloud that covers the island, and it basically disappears. Yeah. But Tom Hanks, he lost 50 pounds. He gained 50 pounds. They took a year off so he could lose it, grow the beard. And during that time, Robert Zemeckis went ahead and used the same film crew to do What Lies Beneath.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that movie, What Lies Beneath, came out July 21st, 2000.
Yeah.
And then Castaway came out December 22nd, 2000.
Wow.
So great year. I love What Lies Beneath. But Wilson, one of the original Wilsons that they used, they had 3. After filming was done, they auctioned it off for $18,400. So Going once, going twice.
Who wants Wilson after this episode? I love the fact that he never opens that package. And
what do you think?
Watching it again. Well, the funny thing was when I was doing my research, and you probably know this because you've been here in America, whereas I just moved over 4 years ago. But apparently during the 2003 Super Bowl, there was a FedEx commercial, which had an alternate ending for Castaway, where they said, "Oh, what was in that package?" And the girl goes, "Oh, just a satellite phone, a GPS locator, a fishing rod, a water purifier, some seeds, just some silly stuff." And that is so funny. But the fact that he doesn't open that package and it represents hope. And also with him and his everyman qualities, it's perfect for this role because it is so much about modern man. And it reminds you about, once again, about the not taking things for granted, because you never know what little things you might miss. And also I realized that I would be hopeless on an island. I wouldn't survive.
Well, who would have thought that he would have survived? He lived his life by the clock. I mean, he worked for Federal Express, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So here he is on the island. He has to make do without all of the everyday things we take for granted. Like when he's gets back home and he holds up the lighter and he just clicks it on.
If I only had this.
Where the hell was this when I needed it?
Took me so long to make fire.
And then when he goes to Helen Hunt's and she gives him like the pocket knife and he's looking at it like
oh my God.
What I could have done with this.
It makes you want to carry those things with you all the time just in case. That plane crash scene, by the way,
is amazing.
Terrifying.
How
suddenly he's in the bathroom, suddenly it's like bang.
Yeah.
Phew.
Yeah, that whole plane crash scene. What is it with Robert Zemeckis and good plane crashes?
It's a Flight. That was also scary.
And Castaway. But Castaway, just because you're seeing everything from Chuck Nolan's point of view, Tom Hanks' character, and like when you see the ocean, when you see it like coming closer and then boom.
Oh, I know.
And then the plane breaks in two. And then he's on the raft.
It's heartbreaking at the end with Helen Hunt. There's so much to this movie. And I just remembered how much I love it when I watched it again.
Well, one last bit of food for thought here. If you take Chuck Nolan's first initial and his last name, it's See No Land.
See No Land.
Very interesting.
That is very interesting. Well, you were saying that when you're collecting these comments from our peeps at Schmoville on our Facebook page, you had the most response about Castaway.
Profilers. We got more comments in general about Tom Hanks than anyone else we profiled, more than like 60. Most of those comments of any movie in our Fast Five, or even some of the others, most of those comments were about Castaway. Profilers love Castaway, including our friend, our profiler, Cole Boone, who says, "I feel my favorite, capitalized favorite performance from arguably my favorite actor ever is Tom Hanks' role as Chuck Nolan in Castaway. It's a heartbreaking performance that shows Hanks' range as an actor." I mean, it is a physically and grueling and emotionally grueling performance. He is romantic, he's funny, he's serious, he gives you everything and feels like you want to love this character. The physical change he makes is one of the best in film history, and he was able to make audiences around the world feel that an inanimate volleyball was human, a true testament to his capabilities as an actor. Go Tom Hanks and go Profiles.
Kieran Wilton says, Castaway is such a powerful film, doing so much with so little. It's built almost entirely off of an impeccable, awe-inspiring performance, a performance so incredible that I would suggest it vital to any would-be actors out there to witness. Castaway is not a film you watch, it is a film you experience.
It is.
Isn't that great?
That is great.
That's great. And I love watching the chat boards on YouTube on Popcorn Talk Network and people getting into it and talking all about their favorite Tom Hanks movies. So keep commenting and I'll keep watching, and if I see any comments I like, I'll read them out.
Right on. Well, let's talk about our favorite scenes, our right stuff from a Tom Hanks movie. This was another one that was hard to choose. There were quite a few. One of them we just talked about, I know, was Wilson.
Wilson. Almost chose Wilson.
But what is yours?
I ended up going with, in Captain Phillips, the medical scene at the end.
Oh, where he breaks down.
Such a powerful scene because that whole movie, he's being a hero and he's just trying to survive and he's running off adrenaline. And then the moment when he's safe, everything sets in and you see the shock in him. And it was interesting because Paul Greengrass wanted it to feel very real, and so it's improvised, and so he got a real Navy medic to examine him. And the Navy medic said at first she was really nervous because it was Tom Hanks. But said as soon as he walked in, she couldn't see Tom Hanks at all. She only saw the character because he was so in the zone. And she checked him out like she would normally, and afterwards she said to Paul Greengrass, Tom Hanks's blood pressure was actually really, really, really high.
Wow.
And he said, that's Tom. Tom was in the zone. He actually was really believing it, and his body was responding.
That was his post-traumatic stress moment. Because the whole movie, he's like in control. He's trying to keep it cool.
Yeah.
And the breakdown.
And that was that scene almost made me cry too, because it's just, you see the weight of what had happened on him, and that's just, gets ya.
Well, the scene that got me, in Philadelphia, my hometown of Philadelphia. This movie came out in 1993. We'll talk more about the actual movie soon.
Is it the opera scene?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
How did you guess?
Amazing. Well, just rewatching it again, I was like, wow, this is a hard scene to pull off.
Well, it's an amazing scene, because here's his character, Andy Beckett. He's dying of AIDS, and he's frail. But it was that moment in the film where he was so full of life and full of passion when he's interpreting the opera to Denzel Washington's character. And Denzel's character is looking at him. The lights go down, and he's just
red and dramatic,
mesmerized by the performance that Andy Beckett is giving, interpreting the opera. And he says, I am life. I am divine. And he goes, I am love. And he's just seeing this man who is dying so full of life. He's never experienced anybody with that amount of passion about anything like he had about the opera, and it freaked him out so much that he was like, besides himself, and he went home and he like got in bed and hugged his wife. I mean, yeah, it really, really got to him. And I remember watching it for the first time in '93 when it came out. It got to me too. It's an amazing scene, and it is an amazing movie.
An amazing detail.
Lots of details.
Lots of trivia. Called Last Detail, we talk about some trivia about Tom Hanks. You already said this one, but I'll say it again.
Say it.
He loves 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes, he does.
So apparently Tom saw it in 1968 in a Cinerama Dome in Oakland, California. And now he says he's seen it over 100 times, and every time he's still astounded by it.
I feel the same way.
Me too. I'm still figuring it out, and I love that.
You know what? The fact that Tom Hanks, he loves 2001: A Space Odyssey. He's a big space nut, especially of the moonshots in the 60s. He's a big Trekkie.
Oh, is he?
He's a huge Star Trek fan. He's also a huge Beatles fan.
Oh, what?
I want to work for this guy.
I know.
I want to work for Tom. I feel like telling him,
besties.
If I went up to him and said, hey, listen, man, you and I, we're like brothers from another mother. You think he'd freak out?
BFFs. But
he'd freak out.
He probably gets that all the time because, again, he's so relatable.
Right,
you feel like you're friends with him.
Well, I got some details for you.
Okay.
Did you know that, speaking of the Beatles,
yes,
do you know who his favorite Beatle is?
I would say Paul, but I'm not sure.
It's John.
Oh, it's John.
You know why I know that?
No.
Because back in 1996, September of 1996, at the premiere of That Thing You Do, which I love that movie.
The Oneaters.
The Oneaters. That's the Onetters.
The Onetters.
The Onetters. That movie, I just love for obvious reasons. But I went up to him at the after party, and I had him sign my program. And this is before I started working in this side of the business, when I was still just a fan, and I still am. But I went up to him, and as he was signing, and I said, I got to ask you, who is your favorite Beatle? So he signed it, handed the program back to me, and said, John.
Wow.
I'll never forget it.
That is awesome.
What else you got?
Well, this is another one you probably know, but anyway, Tom Hanks is the second actor to win back-to-back Best Actor Oscars for Philadelphia and Forrest Gump, but the first was Spencer Tracy in 1937 for Captain's Courageous, and then 1938 for Boys Town.
Wow, Spencer Tracy and Tom Hanks.
Not
good
a
company.
bad company.
And also, just another sort of coincidence, Jason Robards, who was Tom Hanks's boss in Philadelphia, who wrongfully terminated him, he has back-to-back supporting actor Oscars.
There you go.
For 1976's All the President's Men, 1977's Julia.
Yes.
But that was not my trivia. My trivia is actually, did you know
No.
that, no, I did not either. Did you know that Tom Hanks was the first choice to play Jerry Maguire?
Oh.
Can you imagine Jerry Maguire with Tom Hanks instead of Tom Cruise?
I mean, I kind of can. I love Tom Cruise in the role, but I think Hanks can do anything.
Hanks would have done it, and we would have been like, can you imagine anyone else in it?
Can't imagine Cruise doing that, yeah.
But also another connection to Tom Cruise is that back in 1982, Tom Hanks auditioned for risky business.
Interesting. I'm sure those two have had a lot of parallels in their careers because they've been going for about the same time.
Can you imagine if they made a movie together? That'd actually be really cool.
They should.
I would love to see that. I would love to see that.
All right, well, let's keep things going with Fast Five number 4, which is...
Even if you think the mission's FUBAR, sir?
Especially if you think the mission's FUBAR.
What's FUBAR? Oh, it's German.
Saving Private Ryan came out July 24th, 1998, directed by Steven Spielberg. Cost $70 million, which actually seems kind of low when you watch that movie. That only cost $70 million.
Yeah.
Box office worldwide was $482 million. 11 Academy Award nominations, including Tom Hanks. Won 5, including Best Director for Spielberg. But Alicia, can you please explain to me how the hell did Saving Private Ryan not win Best Picture?
I know. What did that year? Was it Thin Red Line?
No, it was Shakespeare in Love. Way to go, JTE!
That's right. And
Shakespeare in Love.
I do not agree with that because Saving Private Ryan, it was actually last year, it was inducted in, or selected for preservation by the National Film Registry for being culturally significant. And I have to say, I mean, not having been to war myself, luckily, for me, it seems like one of the most realistic depictions of war I've seen on screen, especially that opening beach scene. 27 minutes, and it's so chaotic.
Oh, yeah.
And terrifying. It's how you would imagine it to be.
It is still the gold standard for combat scenes in any film. That movie, just because of that scene alone and the battle scene at the end, it completely redefined the war genre. The D-Day scene alone cost $12 million to make. They used 1,500 extras. Up to 30 of them were actual amputees. And as you can tell by the pool of blood washing up on the shore there, 40 barrels of fake blood.
Wow.
But it is John Miller, played by Tom Hanks. And it's a subdued role. It's understated. It's reserved.
Yeah, he's very calm, a very calm authority figure, a great leader. Again, he's playing this everyday guy caught in a really unique, extraordinary situation. He's just trying to make it through alive. He's trying to make his team survive, and he's also just trying to get the job done.
And he's a man of mystery. He's staying private because that's how he copes. Mm-hmm. In fact, it was Kenneth Turan, who's like one of my favorite film critics of all time. He's the film critic for the LA Times. He said in his review of Saving Private Ryan back in 1998, Hanks gives an indelible performance as an elevated everyman, our ideal vision of how we hope we'd all act under the duress of extreme combat.
Yeah, because it's not until towards the end that you start to see the vulnerability that lurks underneath him.
And the mission is a man, 8 people to save 1.
Yeah.
And James Francis Ryan, played by Matt Damon.
Oh, yes, Matt Damon.
Matt Damon. Wow, that was a good year because he also had The Rainmaker that year, I think. But it's...
Great cast.
Now, let me ask you a question. I remember watching this film, I was reminded of Saving Private Ryan came out in July, and in December, The Thin Red Line came out.
Yes.
Both of those movies were nominated for Best Picture. Mm-hmm. Now, at the time, I thought Saving Private Ryan was the better movie. But it was over time that I grew to appreciate and love The Thin Red Line more. Which one do you like better?
Oh, they're both so great, but I'd say that Saving Private Ryan is one that I watch more. But I need to rewatch Thin Red Line because I remember it being quite special and unique.
It's poetic.
Yeah, poetic is
poetic.
the word.
I mean, because it's Terrence Malick, there's so many scenes of beauty that are offset by the scenes of combat. And that happens a little bit in Saving Private Ryan, which is a more straightforward movie. Mm-hmm. Not to take anything away from Saving Private Ryan, because it's just, it's a masterpiece.
It is. It's
a
masterpiece.
Powerful film.
And our profilers love Saving Private Ryan as well. Tyler Myers says, I love Saving Private Ryan because not only is this a great Tom Hanks film, but it's also my all-time favorite war film. It's such a realistic and harrowing depiction of war, and I find it great that it focuses on many of the soldiers, including Tom Hanks, who gives a very gut-wrenching performance as Captain John Miller. The scenes where he talks about his work as a school teacher bring such an emotional core to the story that's well-earned. Get it? In the movie. And of course, the opening scene is such a brutal way to start the film, but it's so well done and brings out the true essence of war. We love you, Tyler, and he's watching live.
Well, speaking
and JT, do you have your mic on? Because I can hear something in the background. No.
No?
Okay. I just
Speaking
hear
of that scene that Tyler mentioned in his comment there, that scene where he's talking about his life was supposed to be much, much longer. And Tom Hanks went to Spielberg and said, because I feel like my character is so private, I don't feel like he would say all this. Spielberg agreed, and they cut the scene down. But our profiler, Rachel Cushing, who is such an amazing writer, what a great critic. She has her own movie review website now, which is amazing.
Yeah.
She says, what I love the most about Saving Private Ryan, we'll get to that in a second, because joining us right now, live on Profiles, we are honored and thrilled to have the director of Big and the director of A League of Their Own. Please welcome the Profiles, Penny Marshall. Penny, you are on with Scott and Alicia.
Hi, Scott and Alicia.
Hello. It's so great to speak to you. We were just rewatching Big the other day. I love that movie. So in your opinion, why do you think Tom Hanks is one of the greatest actors of all time?
Well, he's one of the easiest people to work with, number one. And he always, comes on time. He comes prepared,
Well,
and when he wanted to do League of Their Own, he says, I'm a big dumb dog. I get along with anyone.
Well, when you talk about how easy he was to work with, I mean, can you remember some scenes that you were filming, whether it was from Big or A League of Their Own, where the collaboration between you and him just yielded the perfect scene?
Well, I don't know about perfect, but I think when he was eating in League of Their Own, no, not League of Their Own, Big, they wrote that he eats caviar and spits it out. The writers wrote. But I looked on the table to see what other food was there, and I saw a little corn. And I mean, we must have did around 10 different bits with olives on his finger, carrots, everything, But I saw the corn, and I just see he's from television. I worked with him on Bosom Buddies.
Oh, yeah.
And so television actors, we could talk a shorthand, and if it came from TV. And so I just held up the corn, to eat it like a corn on the cob, and he did.
Well, how did you come to direct Big? Because I know initially Tom Hanks was originally offered the role first, and then he dropped out, and then Robert
He dropped out because there were two other movies with the similar premises, which I didn't know because I don't sit around reading scripts. Like Father, Like Son.
17 Again.
There were two reverse, and another one.
And Robert De Niro was going to play Josh for a second there, and then that sort of gained interest in the film.
What?
Robert De Niro was going to play Josh.
Yes.
And then Tom Hanks came back.
Everyone turned it down because there were these other two movies and an Italian one being made with the same premise. And so I said, well, let me get a real man, instead of a boy man,
And
so I asked Bob, who wanted to do a commercial film, and he came very close. He said yes.
Wow.
And so once he said yes, now everyone wanted to do it.
Sure.
Basically. So he gave me a credibility I really didn't have. So I paid him back with Awakening. So.
There you go, right?
Did you have to give Tom much direction to get him into that childlike state? Because he's so good at playing this grown-up version of the boy, bigger version of the boy. You see the child inside.
Well, he had his son Colin was born, So, and we made him an AD, Colin. He was old enough, so he knew what a kid was like. And I just had to keep him from going too, with that kind of high concept, you got to keep him from going too big. So I had David Moscow, I videoed all the scenes with Elizabeth, John Hurd, Robert Loggia, everyone else in the movie, with David Moscow in rehearsals. And I gave it to Tom. Here. This is what a 12-year-old would do. Because they're too shy.
Right.
To do what, you think a 12-year-old, I don't know a 12-year-old who would do it, So I really had a lead in that with wanting nothing in any scene. He wasn't driving the story, which was a little difficult. But, he was terrific. So he had David as a guide.
Well, how much improv did you encourage on the set? And what were some of the best improvised moments that Tom Hanks came up with that made it into the film?
we had to keep it, well, real low, because you can't get too sketchy in those things. It's a high enough premise, you know? It's a high concept premise. So you got to play it for dead real. You know? And
Sure.
there were times when there was something written when we said, he would say, Aldous Sprockets. We both agreed, this is no good. Let's do this, you know? Like they say, pull down the shade and it flaps up. You know, we've seen that show. You know?
Yeah.
So we're not doing that. So, but I mean, the only time I let him where he went over the top is where he rode, I think, a zebra in F.A.L. Schwartz for a second.
Yeah.
Because that was going over the top, you know?
Yeah.
You got to be careful there. You got to play these high concept things for dead real.
One of my favorite scenes is, of course, the piano scene with Tom and Robert. What do you remember about shooting that scene?
Well, the piano that existed didn't play any note that you know, it wasn't a C when you stepped on it. You know, it didn't have the right. Yeah, it was much smaller. So I called the inventor of it, and I said, make me 2 octaves. And I don't need the black notes to work. I just need the white notes. You know, I could play heart and soul, and I added chopsticks because I like the look of it. And I made up these cardboard things, and Robert Lozier was in France or someplace, and they gave Tom to practice on. So, and they kept, the producers kept saying, do you want dance doubles? No! If I could do it, they could do it. Is my concept, is my theory of life. If I could play the piano with my feet, so could Tom and Robert. Robert played tennis, I knew that, so they could die. They played both songs, and it didn't matter if they made a slight error. That makes it real.
Yeah. That makes it real, absolutely. Well, when this movie opened on June 3rd, 1988, it was a huge hit. It made over $100 million at the box office, making you, Penny Marshall, the first female director to make a movie that grossed over $100 million. So, how exciting was that for you, considering that in the beginning, you know, there was no interest in the film? And then how excited were you again when Tom Hanks was nominated for his first Academy Award?
Well, I was very happy for Tom. And we were in Venice, I think, Italy. And because we had a cake. I have pictures of us with a cake.
Oh.
You know, we weren't in contention, you know, or whatever it is. We were just there with the movie, you know? We weren't in, you know, a contest. We just showed it. And
wow.
So we found out in Venice. I then went to Moscow, and I don't like to be around when the movie opens. I went to Moscow and what was then Leningrad. So I get out of the country where they can't find me. Because what are they going to say? Bad things or nice things? You know?
Right, sure. Yeah, I don't blame you.
I don't need to hear this. I did my job, and if they don't like it, what could I say?
Totally nerve-wracking. Totally nerve-wracking.
Exactly. And then you got to work with Tom again 4 years later on A League of Their Own. Had he changed during that time?
Well, he had done some movies, not so good ones. And so he came to me and said, could he play Jimmy Dugan?
Yep.
Because he didn't want to star in it, even though it's listed as starring him and Gina and Madonna, even though Madonna wasn't starring in it. And so I said, well, I can't have you look the way you look. You look too cute, you know?
You have to gain weight.
You know, so I had made him eat. He ate his way through Chicago and all of Indiana.
Wow.
We gained weight, and it was the first actually adult role he played.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually
an adult character in League.
That film, I look at A League of Their Own as a real turning point in Tom Hanks' career because, like you had mentioned, after Big, he had a couple of movies that didn't really do that well critically or commercially. And then with A League of Their Own, it was a supporting role, a critically acclaimed performance. It was a hit film. And from that point on, for the next 15 years, it was this one.
He's done better movies.
Yeah, huge. I mean, did you sense that there was a conscious effort on his part to really just go for the material and go for the right roles at that point because he had done a few movies that didn't do so well?
Well, I don't know if it was conscious. Yeah, he cared more about what he was reading or whoever was offering him. At that time, yeah, he had done good. So, my movies with him were good.
Yeah, they were great.
And they both made over $100 million here.
Yes.
But then, I don't know. I liked Philadelphia, and I liked Saving Private Ryan.
Amazing, really amazing.
I like true stories, first of all. I like things based on fact.
Well, the fact is that we are honored and thrilled to have you call into Profiles to talk about Tom Hanks. Penny Marshall, thank you.
He's the best. So.
He is definitely the best. There's no question about it.
And the easiest to work with, that's all I could tell you.
I love him.
Thank you so much for calling in. Really, really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for being a part of Profiles. You have a great day, Penny Marshall.
You too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
That's so cool. Yes. Yay! Mats pulls it off again with the great guest.
Malone and Mats again.
And Penny Marshall is about to do another baseball film with a female lead, an African-American female lead. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be great.
Oh, that's awesome news.
Another true story, which is fantastic. But we were reading out Rachel Cushing's comment about Saving Private Ryan. And as Rachel herself pointed out in the chat boards, if she had to be cut off, Penny Marshall is not such a bad person.
If you're going to get cut off by anybody on a live episode of Profiles, like Rachel Cushing could say, yeah, Penny Marshall cut me off.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
And she's going to be proud of that.
She's true. I love how, we see the call come in and JT holds up the sign going, Penny's on the line. We're like, okay,
stop the presses.
But you were reading Rachel Cushing.
Rachel's comment about Saving Private Ryan, just backing up a second here. What I love most about Saving Private Ryan is that it honors the soldiers on the ground who fought and died for every inch gained on the Germans during World War II. These were ordinary men, farm boys, factory workers, students, and yes, teachers who gave their lives for their brothers in arms. And if anyone is going to be able to bring that everyman quality to life, it is Tom Hanks. His John Miller is someone every viewer knows, and it is both encouraging and heartbreaking to see him deal with the absolute horror that was D-Day and the following battles in France. It's such a subdued role for Hanks, but his innate courage and empathy shine through to give the viewer someone to identify with and care for throughout the film. Thank you for your patience, Rachel Cushing.
Yeah, and wasn't that great? Such a treat to talk to Penny Marshall. She's awesome.
We talked to Penny Marshall.
I know.
Yes. All right.
Okay, now we're getting to quiz show where we quiz each other.
This is your favorite part of the show, isn't it, Alicia?
Oh, I hate being put on the spot. My mind goes blank.
Okay.
But, okay, do you want me to give you yours first?
Let's hear it.
All right. So this is not a multiple choice, but I think it's fairly easy.
All right.
So not counting their upcoming war film, Hanks and Spielberg have collaborated on 3 movies.
Yes.
Can you name them?
Yes. That would be Saving Private Ryan.
Yes.
That would be Catch Me If You Can.
Yes.
And that would be The Terminal.
Yay!
Yay! Way to go!
Good work.
I got an easy one for you, too.
Okay.
In Saving Private Ryan, Tom Hanks' character is a teacher. What did he teach? Was it A, geometry, B, political science, C, English composition, and D, American history?
I'm going to go with C, English composition.
You are amazing. You are the smartest person in the room here, Alicia Malone.
Which is nice.
You are the best, Alicia Malone.
I appreciate that. Well, I think it's the perfect time to talk about our Fast Five
number 3,
which is...
Big. Came out June 3rd, 1988. Directed by our guest of honor today. No, not Wilson the volleyball. Penny Marshall. God, that was so cool talking to her.
That was really cool.
That was really cool.
So cool that she made time to call in.
I mean, this is what I love about the show.
It's great.
Cost $18 million to make. Box office $151.7 million worldwide. Domestically, it made $116, which is what made Penny Marshall the first female director to make a movie that grossed $100 million.
Yes.
2 Academy Award nominations for original screenplay and Best Actor. Tom Hanks, his first.
And as Penny Marshall was saying, it's such a high concept that there is that fine line between going over the top with it and making it believable. And that's what Tom Hanks did so well, that to pull off this concept, you have to really believe that he is a child in a man's body, and it has to not be creepy, because there are several moments, especially with Elizabeth Perkins, that could be really creepy, because essentially he's a 13-year-old kid, but it's not at all. And it's definitely a coming of age story, and then reverting back to his age, and reminds you of not to lose the childlike spirit inside you.
Well, it's because of that childlike spirit that he helps Elizabeth Perkins loosen up, and in return she makes him a man.
What?
But it's a sweet movie. It's charming, delightful, very funny, and very moving. Like at the end of the film, when she goes chasing after Tom Hanks and he's already reverted back to his 13-year-old self.
Again, that could be creepy. They have this moment when they look at each other, but it's not. It's sweet.
But wasn't it sad?
So much understanding and sad.
Didn't it bring a tear to your eye when he's standing there in that oversized suit, looking back at him? I mean, and she's like, "What?" Now, here's my question: do you think if that movie was made today, we should have asked Penny Marshall this. If that movie was made today, would the ending have stayed the same?
I don't think so, because these days they don't seem to take as many risks when it comes to having sad endings. It's all about the happy ending.
Louise.
I would have thought that they would have done something like make Elizabeth Perkins' character like child
younger,
again. Yeah, and then they're the same age and they go out and la la la.
Well, Hanks is a co-star in the film. Jared Rushton, who played Billy.
Yeah, they were so good together.
They were great together.
And they're believable. That comic timing they have, like they're so believable as best friends.
Jared Rushton's performance is underrated. I mean, even though we're praising it now, in the New York Times film review back in June of 1988, the review said it features believable young teenage mannerisms from the two boys in the cast, and this only makes Hanks's funny, flawless impression that much more adorable.
And as you were saying, and as Penny was saying, Robert De Niro was almost cast, and Harrison Ford as well.
Harrison Ford.
But this was a game changer for Tom.
No question about
Academy Award nomination, and really showed that he was using his comedic acting chops, which we'd seen before, but this time added a lot more heart to it.
Well, let me ask you a question. Okay, so Zoltar Speaks is fortune, the grants him his wish, and be careful what you wish for, ladies and gentlemen. So I just want to go back to a 13-year-old Alicia Malone, and if she went up to Zoltar, what would she wish for? What would 13-year-old Alicia wish for?
I would have wished to be Drew Barrymore, because she was my idol.
But you are Drew Barrymore. You're the Australian Drew Barrymore.
And I think I definitely would have wanted to be an adult. I wanted to be older all the time.
See, I would have. My wish would have been to be Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise. And here's the beauty of it. I still want to be Captain James T. Kirk of the Starship Enterprise.
But I no longer want to be older. I'm fine now.
That makes two of us.
Well, Will Lambert loves Big, says, Big just makes you laugh. The whole concept of it is just hilarious. When I first saw this movie, I was 12. I thought Hanks portrayed the age he was supposed to be perfectly. That's the same with me. He acted in the exact same way I would have if I was in his situation. Big also contains my right stuff for Hanks. The scene where he's playing chopsticks on the piano with Robert by jumping on the keys, it makes me smile every time.
Well, this movie, this show in particular, when we started the show, we were talking about how we would get to the others.
And Tyler says he wants to meet 13-year-old Alicia Malone. I was very shy.
I refuse to believe that.
I would have hid in the corner, I would have gone bright red, and then I would have just gone, I want to watch a movie.
That's why you watch so many movies. That's why you know so much about movies.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the others. There are so many others. That could have taken a whole other show.
I know. I love Captain Phillips, like we were saying before. It's heart-wrenching. It's so tense. Also love League of Their Own.
League of Their Own.
As Penny was saying, it was a very different role for Tom Hanks, and there's no crying in baseball.
There's no crying in baseball.
What do you love?
I love That Thing You Do. I mean, it's the movie that he made his directorial debut in this movie, and he wrote the screenplay as a way to deal with the award season madness surrounding Forrest Gump. He needed something to keep him grounded, so he wrote
it at the same time.
He wrote it at the same time, and it's a delightful, fun, charming movie. I love the music. The Oneaters, the Wonders are just terrific, but I love Apollo 13.
I love Apollo 13, and again, he plays that calm authority figure, someone that you want to have as your leader. And also you can see that little glint of a kid that's grown up and wants to be in space, still loves the idea of space exploration.
Apollo 13 is such a great movie. It's nominated for Best Picture, not for Best Director for Ron Howard. It should have. But even though he did win the DGA that year, which is kind of weird, but deserved. But Apollo 13, I mean, it's based on a true story. It really happened. The third moonshot, which could have ended in disaster, and all this collaboration, they got home. They lived. It was America's successful failure. And because Tom Hanks is such a big space nut, so is Ron Howard, they produced one of my favorite miniseries of all time, 1998's From the Earth to the Moon, which is all about the Apollo missions of the late 60s and early 70s.
I also love Sleepless in Seattle.
Of course.
But we have to talk about Toy Story.
Toy Story.
Because his voice is the heart of that movie, the Woody character, and they use that charm that he has, that American sort of charm about him perfectly as
it's
that
a vibrant voiceover. But those movies made Pixar. Toy Story and Toy Story 2 from 95 and 99 were groundbreaking, trailblazing computer animated movies. And the amazing thing is that when Toy Story 3 came out in 2010, it actually managed to be the best of the bunch, which is a bold statement.
And that scene when they think they're going to die?
When they're on the conveyor. God. I mean, you're like,
that
this is it.
Me. Yeah.
And they're making a Toy Story 4, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But other movies that could easily have been in our Fast Five on any given Sunday, Road to Perdition, Catch Me If You Can, Charlie Wilson's War. I mean, the list goes on and on. I love Charlie Wilson's War.
Lawrence Fitzsimmons on the chat board on YouTube says, Apollo 13 was faked. It was filmed by Stanley Kubrick.
Someone watched our profiles on Stanley Kubrick.
And Guillermo Lopez says, am I the only one who loves Tom in Cloud Atlas? I actually love Cloud Atlas because I read the book, but I know we differ on that. But I just love seeing the book on screen and again, seeing him in so many different lights. Now, we did our brackets. Well, our profilers did our brackets on our Facebook page. Profiles with Malone and Mats on Facebook. Make sure you give it a like. And this week they did Tom Hanks characters. So the final four was Captain Miller versus Andrew Beckett. So Captain Miller, Andrew Beckett. Forrest Gump versus Woody. It came down to Forrest Gump versus Captain Miller. Can you guess who won?
I'm going to go with Forrest.
Forrest Gump wins.
Well, that's all I got to say about that.
And Cole Boone and Joshua Willingham did the brackets this
week.
To go. So thank you so much. And thanks to everyone who participates, who comments. We love reading all of them, and we love reading all your comments on YouTube and also all your reviews on iTunes.
So please take this time, and this is really, really important. We need this to survive. Go to iTunes right now. Make sure you subscribe to Profiles, and make sure you rate and review us on iTunes. These ratings and reviews on iTunes for Profiles with Malone and Mance, these are crucial to keeping us on the charts, keeping us going week to week, and we want to keep going week to week. We have plans to make Profiles just bigger and better as the weeks go on.
Yes.
So please go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review us. Also, like Alicia mentioned, go to our Facebook page, Profiles with Malone and Mance. Make sure you join in on the fun. We are so excited when our profilers comment on the brackets, when we get into all of the fun of like what movies are the best and why. We really, really need that.
All right, so we've been told 9 minutes, so that means we have to race through our last two. We can do this. Fast Five number 2 is...
I don't buy it, counselor. I don't see a case.
I have a case.
Philadelphia,
hometown, released December 22nd, 1993. Directed by Jonathan Demme. This movie cost $26 million to make. Box office worldwide, $207 million worldwide. 5 Oscar nominations. 2 wins. 1 for Best Original Song, Streets of Philadelphia,
and
Bruce Springsteen. 1 for Best Actor, his first win, Tom Hanks. Interestingly, that Springsteen and Tom Hanks have been good friends for a long, long time. And they both won Oscars for that movie. How awesome is that?
That is awesome. And I like this movie too because it was a very important film for its time. It was the first mainstream Hollywood film, one of the first to show HIV/AIDS, to give it a human face, to humanize the disease, and also to show homosexuality and homophobia as well. It tackled all those issues, but it's still really entertaining to watch. And rewatching this movie, even though the idea of AIDS might seem a bit outdated, I know it's still happening, but it's less prevalent than it was back then. But his performance is what keeps this movie still engrossing. And he's so raw and heartbreaking and real, and you completely believe him.
Well, this was a radical departure for Tom Hanks. I mean, no question about it. And when watching the movie again, you forget how much of a groundbreaker, how much of a trailblazer this movie was at the time. And it hadn't even been 10 years since Rock Hudson died of AIDS and sort of became the face of AIDS for a long, long time. And this movie really changed the perception of how people saw AIDS, and it really signaled a shift in Hollywood in the way that they portrayed gays and lesbians on film. People don't realize how much of an important film, how much of a trailblazer Philadelphia really was, and the chemistry between Tom Hanks and Denzel Washington.
Oh, so good.
With the way they just sort of like helped each other out, and they grew, especially Denzel.
Together. And I forgot that Antonio Banderas is in this movie. When I rewatched it, I was like, oh, that's right. But yeah, like you said, I think it's a really important film because you started to understand the disease. It showed how much misconceptions there were about how you could get it. That scene where Denzel Washington is watching him in the office when he's picking up the cigar, he's putting it down. He
puts it down,
and then he's looking at his hand going, oh God,
I
could get, which is really, it seems so crazy now, but at the time, no one knew about it.
Like all the protests that were going on outside about people with AIDS, I mean, that wouldn't happen today.
No.
But because people have a bigger understanding about it, and a lot of reason that Philadelphia was a main reason, one of the main reasons that sort of like opened people up to understanding the disease.
Yeah.
This is a movie about tolerance. This is a movie about friendship. This is a movie about Tom Hanks losing 26 pounds to play Andrew Beckett. But interestingly, the role was actually offered to other actors who turned it down, like Michael Keaton, Andy Garcia, and Daniel Day-Lewis.
Wow, Daniel Day-Lewis, that would have been interesting. Well, Dan Skip Allen says, Philadelphia features a star-making performance by Tom Hanks, whose character is stricken physically and emotionally by AIDS in a real and tragic way. It's sad how the people around him are changed when his character is around. Hanks's transformation is so key to why his performance is so great and why he won the Oscar for his role. And Dan is watching right now, so hi.
Hi, Dan. Well, that brings us to number one on our Fast Five, which is...
I'm not a smart man, but I know what love is.
Oh,
Forrest
Gump.
Now, I know some people might be saying, like, switch them around, and we went back and forth of whether, Philadelphia should be number one or Forrest Gump, but this is his most iconic role.
It is his most iconic role, and there was, for a long time, I mean, to this day, I think people are still divided on whether it was worthy of winning Best Picture. I mean, it is. I mean...
it is. People, I think, are too harsh on it. People are cynical about it, but it's a magical movie.
It is a magical movie.
Go with it.
It was a phenomenon. Remember how many, like, the soundtrack alone sold like a gazillion copies. This movie came out on July 6, 1994. Directed by Robert Zemeckis. It cost $55 million to make. Again, it seems like kind of a bargain considering how groundbreaking the CGI special effects were.
Putting him in all the historical situations.
Kennedy and Johnson and John Lennon.
It's actually a great way to see America's history told through a very different perspective. And once again, Tom Hanks had to carry this movie. It's all on his shoulders, and he also has to make his character, who is mentally impaired, not seem like a negative stereotype.
Well, the movie made $678 million worldwide in 1994. I mean, that seems like a lot of money today, but 94, 20 years ago,
prices? Wow.
that was huge. And what I love about Forrest Gump, the character, was his sweet, childlike sensibility. He saw the good, the innocence.
Yeah.
He saw the good in everything. I mean, so what if he had an IQ of 75? I mean, that's an endearing quality to have. He was loyal to his friends and his family, and he just loved Jenny.
And that's the thing about this movie. There's so many lines that you can quote.
Stupid is as stupid does.
Life is
like a box of chocolates. Never know what you're going to get. Lieutenant Dan!
And also, of course, run, Forrest, run.
Okay, I hear that line all the time. Between the 20 marathons and 23 half marathons I've done in the last 10 years, if I had a dime for every time I heard someone say, run, Forrest, run, I would be a rich man.
And now you are a member of the Gump cross-country team, according to your t-shirt. And I'm a member of the ping pong training camp.
Yes, we are representing the Forrest Gump here. Robert Zemeckis said this about Tom Hanks' performance in Forrest Gump. I can't think of anyone who would have done as good as Tom did. Maybe Henry Fonda, but who knows? It wouldn't have been as good as Tom, nor would it have been as perfect as Tom. And it's just, I actually like the movie better now, watching it in the context of Profiles. I was on the fence. Should have gotten Best Picture.
I don't know. I'm still on the fence about that, but I love watching the film. It's got so much charm And that, of course, has a lot to do with Mr. Hanks.
Well, Tyler Moore said this about Forrest Gump. Forrest Gump is my favorite Tom Hanks film. It's definitely his best performance. Even though his character seems hard to relate to on paper, you laugh, you cry, etc. with his character. I think it deserved the Best Picture win. Forrest Gump is an absolutely incredible film. Thank you, Tyler Moore. That brings us to...
Yeah, well, quickly, Alex Corey says, its Best Picture win was very, very well deserved. And Joseph Johnny Hartwell Albertu Heisenberg, long name, says John Goodman was originally considered for Forrest as well as Bill Murray. So now let's quickly recap our Fast Five before we get out of here. Number 5
is Castaway. Number 4 is Saving Private Ryan. Number 3 is Big. Number 2 is Philadelphia. Number 1 is Forrest Gump.
And up next week, who do we have?
I will do what needs to be done.
Ooh.
Meryl Streep.
Meryl Streep. We are back with an actress.
Woman. Yes.
The actress. I mean, not just any actress. This is Meryl Streep. And when you watch Profiles next week, ladies and gentlemen, you will see why Meryl Streep has been nominated for 500,000 Academy Awards. A million. So thank you for joining us on Profiles. Remember to go to iTunes and subscribe, rate, and review us.
And on youtube.com/Popcorn Talk Network.
And like us, our Facebook page, Profiles with Malone and Mance. Until next time, bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Christian Harloff, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of its owners or principals.